if you're not on the line actually shooting at the target or doing the dry fire, when we're back here, do not touch your gun.
Wilderness Tactical has been around for longer than the gun you're carrying has been, and they have been making high quality products for concealed carriers for literally decades. I wear their low pro belt every year. The webbing is the best in the industry, and I won't wear anything else. If you're looking for a good CCW belt, check them out.
Just don't even touch it. All right? There's no gun handling off the line whatsoever. Agreed? Agreed. Perfect. All right, so I think what I'm going to try and do, if we can make like a little semicircle-ish situation around the border of the tent, we'll all work on stance. We don't have to get the guns out at all, but just get a little space where you can stand and see everybody and everything. And we'll kind of work on your stance from this position. Let's talk a little bit about stance, and we'll just kind of build from the ground up. I know some of you have a lot of experience, so just go with it. Maybe you'll hear something new, I don't know. But when you're thinking about stance, the ultimate goal is we're trying to sort of counterbalance that push you get from the recoil, right? Do we agree? Maybe? Do we? Okay. Is that right? So we're trying to counterbalance that push. So the best way to counterbalance that push is to make yourself very stable in your positioning. So ultimately, we're trying to get to where, like if I were to walk up to you and you had your hands out, I really couldn't push you backwards, yeah? So if you start with your feet, how many of you have ever done a deadlift before? My husband tells me I give a lot of girly examples, but that one feels like it might not be too girly, right? So think about, even if you haven't done a deadlift, because about 2 of you admitted to it, even if you haven't done a deadlift, think about, like, if I'm picking up something very heavy, like a big 200-pound medicine ball up off the ground, visualize that and think about, like, your toes are kind of digging into the ground, like your inner, I don't even know the names of the muscles. I may need Brian to help me. You got some leg muscles in there. Oh, man. But go with me. Like, think about if I'm picking up something heavy, like you can feel it, right? Your toes are engaged, your leg muscles are engaged, your hip muscles are engaged. And even like as you try to, if you're doing that deadlift and you're trying to stand that bar up, like once you get the bar up, then even your shoulder muscles are engaged, or your shoulder blades are engaged as well. All right, so kind of visualize what that feels like, or go with me. Bend over, pick up your big medicine, oh, I love it. All right, pick up your big medicine ball. You can feel it, right? Are you just saying that? Can you feel it?
It's working.
Okay, yeah. So we've got the medicine ball up. That's really the best way I can tell you is how it should feel when you're standing on the range getting ready to shoot. Like all those muscles are going to be engaged. A lot of times you see people, they just sort of stand very casually at the range and they're rocking back and forth and their arms are kind of going up and back and forth. It's because they're not fully engaged with their core. So you're really trying to get your core set. So if I've done the deadlift, right, everybody's doing the deadlift, legs are set, my toes are digging into the ground, maybe I've got my core engaged, my abs are engaged, my shoulder blades once I pick it up, and then, you know, get your arms into it. So basically what we're trying to do is your stance is only moving the things that are absolutely necessary. So if I'm shooting, what's absolutely necessary that I move if I'm going to draw my gun?
Arms and hands.
Arms and hands, yeah. So sometimes we see people like moving their whole upper core, right? Their whole upper body. Is that necessary that we move that? Not really. It actually makes it a little bit faster if you get everything as stable as it's going to get. My eyes are on the target, and all I move are my arms and hands. If I'm only moving my arms and hands, then my gun, all it has to do is get in between my eyes and the target, and I can make my shot. So it's a little bit quicker than if I'm moving my whole body, or at least the upper half of my body. Now I've got to line up my head and the target and the gun. You can be a lot quicker to get on target if we get this stable to begin with. So we picked up our deadlift, keep it still. Like even think about your head. Now this will be a girly example. Stick with me. Think about a carousel, right? The horses on the carousel, like they're not moving at all. They're going up and down, but the hydraulics are going up and down. It's not the actual, like their arms and their legs aren't really moving. They're very still, like a statue. So think about your arms as just the hydraulics to the carousel. That's all that really needs to move. Get your head set, get your body set, get your core set, and then the arms just come in and out. I could give you another example like the monorail at Disney World. They're just coming in and out. And that's pretty much all you want to move is your arms and legs. And whether you're shooting quickly or a little more slowly, carefully, none of that changes. None of the speed of that changes, right? Just maybe the speed at the very end would change. A lot of it's just little nuances, like little minor changes that you can make that help you feel a lot more stable. You know, from that slight rocking to, you know, not rocking at all. It's just, sometimes it's just a minor movement. I didn't really talk about feet positioning and some of that so much, but ultimately we're trying to create a base, right? So what I usually, or how I usually do it is just feet a little bit wider and then shoulder width apart. For me personally, you may shoulder width or just slightly wider. And then I take my dominant foot, so I'm right-handed, so I'm gonna take my right foot and I go back, straight back maybe about 3 inches. So I'm kind of like, I think of it like a kickstand, really. The main thing is engaging all those muscles, because if you're just standing very casually, it's hard to counterbalance any sort of push from the recoil, right? So feet shoulder width apart. In terms of your arms, I didn't really mention that so much either, but you don't want to be hyperextended with your elbows. You do want like a slight bend in your elbows. When I think of my grip on the gun, try to press your palms together and see what muscles you feel. Tell me what you're feeling. Lisa's got those, whatever those are. Yeah. So for me, I don't have all the terms, but like I feel forearms, biceps, and even my pecs a little bit. So if I'm really pressing those palms in versus try to just press in with your fingertips like people normally would shoot. Does it feel the same amount of engagement with your muscles? Not really, yeah. So for me, I tend to grip with the back of my palms and I really get that whole body involvement. With women in particular, we don't hold the gun really as hard as we should. Women have about, I think it's like 60% less grip strength than a man would. So I would recommend like gripping the gun as hard as you can without, you know, that shake, right? If you're shaking, let's lighten it up just a little bit, but really grip the gun as hard as you can. Because a lot of times I find people hold the gun like it's a hairbrush. Was that girly? Yeah. Like it's a hairbrush or a hair dryer. And we're just kind of holding it like we don't want to drop it. But we're not holding it like a cell phone over the Shark Tank at the Georgia Aquarium. Like I don't want to lose my cell phone. We should be gripping the gun in that same way. Like I need to grip it as hard as I can versus I'm just holding this thing, right? Because that's going to help, again, with the speed. So if our stance helps get on target more quickly, the grip's going to help that too. Because if I'm gripping the gun firmly enough, I'm not going to have those wide variances of recoil, you know, where the gun goes way up in the air and comes back down, because that's time, ultimately. So if I'm gripping the gun enough so it just sort of rises and falls normally or very slightly, then I'm going to be able to get my gun back on target more quickly. So the more you can engage those muscles, actually the quicker you're going to be.